Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're taking a truly magnificent journey back in time. We're going to uncover the hidden stories, the massive, completely unchecked egos, and some genuinely fascinating linguistic secrets behind the ancient world's most famous list, the Seven Wonders. And hey, we aren't just going to look at dry facts here. No, we're diving into the deeply human stories behind these absolute colossal structures.
So here's our itinerary for today. First up, the Ancient Travel Guide. Next, the Sole Survivor, followed by ambition, tragedy, and myth. Then we'll decode the words left behind, and finally, wrap things up with the modern Seven Wonders.
All right, Section 1, the Ancient Travel Guide. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. When we think of the Seven Wonders, we usually picture this grand official decree handed down by history, right? But the reality? It's actually way more relatable. Ancient writers and poets, guys like Antipater of Sidon and Philo of Byzantium, they were essentially the ancient world's premier travel bloggers. They totally curated this specific list across Egypt, Iraq, Greece, and Turkey, all based on what they personally considered the absolute peak of human engineering and artistry in the Mediterranean and Near East.
And looking at that list brings up a super fascinating geographical fact. Out of the entire ancient world, 2 of these incredible structures were located practically right next to each other in what is modern-day Turkey. Think about that. You had the Temple of Artemis sitting up in modern-day Izmir, specifically Selçuk, and then the mausoleum at Halicarnassus down in modern-day Muğla, or Bodrum. It was just a massive hotspot for monumental ancient tourism.
Moving on to Section 2, the Sole Survivor.
So, out of all 7 magnificent structures on that original list, only one is still standing today for us to actually go see with our own eyes. 2560 BC. That is roughly the sheer, mind-boggling antiquity we're dealing with here. Just process that for a second. 2560 BC. The structure was already ancient history when the other 6 wonders on the list were even being built.
Of course, I'm talking about the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. It is an absolute marvel of endurance. Built as this monumental tomb for the Egyptian pharaoh Khufu, you might also know him as Cheops, it was meticulously supervised by the brilliant architect Hamunu. And wow, Hamunu's engineering was so incredibly flawless, and the sheer scale of the stone blocks so utterly massive that it is literally the only surviving wonder today. It's just a breathtaking testament to ancient Egyptian engineering.
Which brings us to Section 3. Ambition, tragedy, and myth.
So you're probably wondering, what happened to the other 6? Well, they fell to disasters, fire, and, just time itself. But the stories behind them, they are intensely human. Let's take the Hanging Gardens of Babylon in modern-day Iraq, for example. The rumor goes that King Nebuchadnezzar II built these incredibly lush, multi-tiered gardens simply because his wife, Amadis, was terribly homesick for the green hills of her homeland. It's really beautiful, right? But then contrast that sweet romantic origin with the sheer divine awe intended by the statue of Zeus at Olympia. We're talking a towering, 12-meter-tall seated idol crafted entirely out of gleaming gold and ivory. Its whole purpose was literally to make you feel tiny and insignificant in the presence of the gods.
But as we know, human ambition also has a really dark side. The Temple of Artemis was this breathtaking masterpiece. The first and largest Ionian temple built entirely of marble, designed by Chersiphron. Just magnificent. Yet, in 356 BC, a guy named Herostratus intentionally set it on fire, burned it completely to the ground. And why? He just wanted his name to be written in history. That's it. He was essentially the ancient world's ultimate cloud chaser, destroying an absolute masterpiece just for a taste of fame. And you know what the real tragedy is? His terrible plan actually worked. Here we are, still talking about him.
Actually, let me pause right here and ask you a direct question, something that's honestly puzzled people for centuries. Whenever you see old drawings of the Colossus of Rhodes, you almost always see these massive merchant ships sailing right between the giant bronze legs of the statue, right? So, did that actually happen? No way, right? Yep, we are totally busting a major historical myth today. Contrary to popular belief, and honestly hundreds of very dramatic paintings, sculpture Trace's massive bronze statue of the sun god Helios did not straddle the harbor entrance. Not at all. It actually stood entirely beside the harbor. Now, don't get me wrong, it was an absolutely incredible feat of bronze casting. But ships, they never passed beneath its legs. It just wasn't an archway. And while the Colossus was magnificent, its lifespan was just shockingly short. Think about this timeline. In year 0, the massive construction is finally completed. But just 56 years later, a massive earthquake strikes the island of Rhodes. The Colossus just snaps right at the knees and falls, basically lying in ruins for centuries. 56 years! It barely lasted a single human lifetime before the Earth just took it completely down.
Now, moving on to Section 4, Words Left Behind. Now, what's really interesting here is that even though these structures crumbled or burned or were shaken to pieces, they didn't completely disappear. They actually left behind this sort of phantom legacy right inside the very words we speak today. Take the word mausoleum. We use it all the time today for any large above-ground tomb, right? Well, it comes directly from a giant monument built in Halicarnassus by Artemisia for her husband and brother, the Carian king Mausolus. The structure was so mind-blowingly grand that from that day forward, any monumental tomb literally just took his name.
And why did this specific tomb coin a whole new word? Because it was crafted by an absolute ancient dream team. You had master architects Pythios and Satros working alongside four of the greatest sculptors of the entire age, Scopas, Braxis, Timotheus, and Leocharis. They basically pooled together the absolute pinnacle of their artistic genius and poured it into this one singular structure.
Oh, and here is our second massive linguistic aha moment. If you look at words for lighthouse in various languages, like phare in French, faro in Spanish and Italian, or even fene in Turkish, they all derive from the name of an island, Pharos. And Pharos was the island in Egypt that was home to the mighty lighthouse of Alexandria. This wonder, designed by the architect Sostratus during the Ptolemaic dynasty, wasn't just some pretty monument to look at. No, it served a highly practical, literally life-saving purpose. It was a colossal mirrored beacon that safely guided Mediterranean merchant ships right into the bustling port of Alexandria. It was just so effective and so iconic that the name of its island simply became the universal word for the building itself. How cool is that?
All right, bringing us to Section 5, the modern Seven Wonders.
Humanity's obsession with listing our greatest marvels? Yeah, that hasn't faded one bit. In fact, in 2007, we hit a major milestone. Unlike that ancient list, which was basically just curated by a few Mediterranean writers, this time, a massive global public vote was finalized. We are talking millions of people from all over the planet casting their votes to establish a brand new list of wonders for the modern era. And as you'll see, this new list is incredibly diverse. You've got Chichen Itza in Mexico, Christ the Redeemer down in Brazil, the Great Wall of China, Machu Picchu in Peru, Petra in Jordan, the Colosseum in Italy, and of course, the Taj Mahal in India. These marvels literally span the entire globe. While the ancient list was pretty tightly clustered around the Mediterranean and the Near East, today, our wonders truly belong to the entire world.
Which brings us to a final sort of provocative thought to leave you with. We saw how the magnificent Temple of Artemis fell to the flames of pure human ego, and how the massive Colossus of Rhodes was brought down by a sudden earthquake just 56 years after it was built. Nature and time, they're incredibly unforgiving. So look around at the modern marvels of our current world and ask yourself, what will future civilizations thousands of years from now consider the surviving wonders of our time? What kind of legacy are we going to leave behind? Anyway, thank you so much for exploring history with me on this explainer today, and hey, always keep questioning the world around you.